In today's episode, we discuss what many consider the best wooden coaster in the world and how it has held that title for almost 20 years. Welcome to Airtime Traveler. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You are listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and as always, I'm joined by my wife and lovely co-host.
Hey, I'm Haley Grace.
And happy Thanksgiving. Haley over here mouthing my whole intro, so.
Predictable.
It's predictable? How did you know I was going to say happy Thanksgiving?
Happy Thanksgiving.
No, but how did you know I was going to say happy Thanksgiving?
Because you told me that this comes out on Thanksgiving.
It's pretty impressive. You knew that's exactly what I was going to say after my intro. So
I'm your wife. I know.
I guess so.
I can read your mind.
Reminds me of those those TikTok videos where they prompt their spouse to say something and then guess what they're going to say back. I feel like so many of those have to be fake. We've been
maybe some of them. Some of them might be.
Some of them might be real, but we've been together for a long time, and I still don't feel like I could perfectly, replicate exactly what you're going to say at any given moment.
I have phrases I feel like you would get.
See, you do, but I can't perfectly guess exactly what you're going to say and with what tone you're going to say. I don't know. Maybe we're just more unpredictable than other married couples.
We're so unpredictable.
Well, if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Here at Airtime Traveler, we talk about roller coaster history, as you might have guessed. But rather than talk about the history of the roller coaster in general, we like to do deep dives into individual coasters. So I'm a coaster enthusiast.
We like deep dives. Get it? On coasters, they have deep dives. Okay.
that was a good one.
Thanks, honey. Yeah. Appreciate it.
I'm a coaster enthusiast and have been for a long time. My wife Haley is a member of the GP or the general public.
Apparently, because my joke was not a good coaster joke. So that was a GP joke.
So I'm here to do the research and to tell the stories, and she's here to listen and to make me more interesting. So
check.
That's how it goes here.
That's true.
I don't think I have a whole lot to talk about in our episode. I mean, the only thing is the last episode we talked about the whole King Ka drama, and then literally the day that episode released, they announced that it was closing.
Yeah.
So that conversation we had in that episode became outdated very fast. So I don't have a whole lot more to say. I made a big post about it on social media that a lot of you were sharing and commenting on, so I think a lot of people listening already saw what I had to say about the matter, so yeah. I won't go into too much more. If you want to see my thoughts on the whole situation, you can go and check out our socials. So we're on a Twitter /X or on Instagram. Our handle is just at Airtime Traveler. So
yeah.
But yeah,
I do think it's cool that you guys keep sharing the things that we share, because it helps our name get out there more. So we appreciate it, even if it's negatory stuff. We appreciate it.
Even if it's negatory. I feel like a lot of people have kind of had the same, kind of agreed with my viewpoints on the situation, which I appreciate. So it's always nice to see that I'm not the only enthusiast that feels that way. I'm kind of upset about how Six Flags handled that whole situation. It's kind of a mess. So I have heard rumors that part of why they did it the way they did is because the coaster was in such bad shape that it wouldn't have been able to handle the capacity of an actual send-off event with thousands and thousands of people there.
Right. That's unfortunate.
Which, if that's true, I mean, I understand why they did it that way, but it's also very frustrating that the coaster was allowed to get to that point. So,
right.
So El Toro Orion also pointed out that in, I think, August, they posted about season pass sales coming up soon, and mentioned that in King Dakar rides in 2025 was one of the things they mentioned. So this was like a pretty recent decision that was made. Like sometime between August and now is when the decision was made to close the ride permanently, which is really fast, especially because the merger didn't become official until July. So, I mean, I don't know what it was that apparently Cedar Fair leadership that came in saw that made them decide to, as a whole, just rip out the coaster immediately. But yeah, it's crazy. So
yeah.
Anyway,
it is unfortunate. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So
I wish there was more that they could have done for it, but
yeah, I'm hoping this is just a side effect of the merger,
right? And
them wanting to make decisions quickly for the next season, and that this isn't like the new norm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be
awful. So I'm hoping that it was just kind of like a one-time thing that this happened, and they were just trying to make quick decisions after the merger was completed, and they only had a few months before the season ended to do so. And hopefully moving forward, they'll have their decisions planned out further in the future so that they can actually give coasters a proper send-off. So it's just unfortunate that the tallest coaster in the world had to be the one to get the short end of the stick as far as that's concerned. So
sorry.
Hey, that was funny. The tallest coaster got the short end of the stick. I didn't even mean to do that on purpose, but she thought that was pretty funny.
That's why it was funny, is because you totally didn't mean to.
No, it's just the phrase that made the most sense. So.
I don't know why that was so funny.
So.
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 Right.
Anyway, like I said, if you want to see my whole thoughts on the situation, you can go check out our socials. So we already talked a lot about this in our last episode, so we'll just leave it at that.
Moving on.
So IAPA is this week, so there's actually, as you're listening to it, I kind of spoiled it, but we're recording this a little bit in advance because we're going to be heading out of town for the week of Thanksgiving, so we're kind of getting this recording done early.
Yep.
So the week you're listening to this, IAPA was last week, so I can't really go into all the announcements because some of them happened today, but there's nothing too crazy. It was mostly just vehicle reveals today, like train reveals were for to.
Which ones did they reveal?
They revealed Rapterra at King's Dominion's lead car. That's the new launched wing coaster going in there, so looks really nice. They revealed Alpen Fury's lead car as well. That's the multi-launch coaster coming to Canada's Wonderland. And then Vekoma revealed a really, really big coaster that's going to a park in Mexico that nobody knew about. And not only did that train look the best, but the layout for that coaster just looked incredible. Like 6 inversions and multiple launches, like just a huge coaster that wasn't really on anybody's radar. So
in Mexico? Is it Six Flags America?
No, it's not Six Flags Mexico. It's some other park. So kind of an interesting one, but yeah, it looked really good. So yeah, but there'll be more announcements later in the week, and we'll just have to talk about those when we do our next recording after we get back from our trip, so to speak. So
if there's enough announcements, maybe we can even have a coaster conversations about it.
Maybe. Yeah, IAPA tends to be more like less about actual new coasters getting announced and more just kind of revealing additional details about coasters that have already been announced. So the one in Mexico was a brand new one that we didn't know about, but both Alpen Fury and Rapterra were previously announced. It's just kind of getting to see the new train. Oh, also S&S revealed the ride vehicle for Twisted Twizzler, I think it's called. That's the S&S Scream and Swing that's coming to Hershey Park next year. So anyway, yeah.
Yep.
Well,
I'm excited for Hershey. We need to go back and ride it.
I don't know. I'm kind of tempted to wait till they open their next coaster to go back, because we kind of got those
again
the short end of the stick when we went there this summer.
Such a
so
bummer.
we really went there just for Wildcats Revenge, and it wasn't open the one day we were there. So, but
okay, moving on.
So, well, let's jump into today's episode, because we've got a lot to talk about today. This is a coaster that I could have made this episode. Probably could have made it 2 episodes. There's a lot of fluff that isn't necessarily that important to the story of the coaster, but I could have put in here if I really wanted to make this a really, really long episode. But it's not really necessary for the. It's
true. Nathan literally I was doing some work here in the office that we record on, and he's like, Haley, there's so much information on this, I can't keep up. And
so we're going to Holiday World for our episode today, and Holiday World has a podcast that they do, so I'm like, oh my gosh, there's hundreds of podcast episodes I could try to sort through and see if I could get more information on this coaster. Or Coaster Radio's done a couple interviews with the park officials at Holiday World. So we're talking about the Voyage at Holiday World today. And yeah, like Haley said, there's a Discovery Channel special on it. There was a Nat Geo special on it. This coaster is one of the most legendary roller coasters ever constructed. And so there is so much information about it. And it was built fairly recently, so that helps with not digging up old newspapers from 1920 or whatever, Although
those stories are pretty cool.
Those stories are fun. It's just sometimes there's not as much information because you just are reliant solely on newspapers to get your information. Where this one opened in 2006, so the internet was a thing, so you can kind of pull from old YouTube and some, Wayback Machine and different things like that to get information. So yeah, the Voyage at Holiday World opened in 2006 at a cost of $6.5 million, 6,442 feet long, 163 feet tall, and a top speed of 67 miles per hour. Holiday World doesn't post their wait times. They used to, but they don't anymore. The most recent wait time average I could find was for 2020. The average wait time was 39 minutes, which that checks out. I've seen 2 hours, but when I was there during the middle of a week, it was basically 5 to 10 minutes all day. So, that kind of checks out. So somewhere in the middle there. In the CoasterBot ranks, it ranks at number 5 in the country and number 9 in the world. This is crazy. It's crazy.
This park is tiny, tiny, tiny in the middle of nowhere.
Literally the middle of nowhere. In Indiana.
Nathan didn't even know what Santa Claus town was. And then he figured out that there was one of the biggest coaster parks.
Right when I was kind of getting into the enthusiast community and this, the coaster enthusiast hobby. We went to, if I remember correctly, we went to Santa Claus, Indiana, prior to me getting into this hobby, and we drove by the park. It was kind of on the verge of it. I think we had been to Kennywood, and so I was kind of starting to get interested in it. Mm-hmm. And we drove by the park, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's an amusement park out here. I had no idea. And so, where we drove is on that side of the park where the Voyage and Thunderbird are. And so, yeah, it's crazy. It literally is out in the middle of nowhere.
Literally in the middle of nowhere.
It's pretty funny.
You're driving on the highway, and all of a sudden you see signs for Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
And you're there's a town called Santa Claus?
Little tourist trap there in southern Indiana, and amusement park to go with it. So, yeah, number 9 in the world. That makes it the highest ranked wooden coaster in the world in the CoasterBot rankings. That's pretty wild. Of all the coasters across the whole world, right now the CoasterBot rankings would say the best wooden coaster is in Indiana.
Middle of nowhere, Indiana.
So that puts it above it's pretty wild. It puts it above coasters such as El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure, our very own Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City, and Phoenix at Knoebels, which Phoenix is, that's the Golden Ticket Awards winner for best wooden coaster in the world for like the past, I don't know, 8 years or something like that. So Phoenix is also very good, but according to CoasterBot, the Voyage is better. So kind of choose who to believe, but I personally like CoasterBot just because that's open to anybody, where the Golden Ticket Awards is a closed group of people voting on it.
Right.
So at Holiday World, it ranks first. Obviously, I mean, the top 5 in the country. You're not gonna have another coaster at the park rated above you. So, Voyage is number 1 with Thunderbird at 2, the Legend at 3, and the Raven at number 4, and then likely Good Gravy will come in at number 5.
Good gravy.
Good gravy. Review of the name.
It's a great name.
Is a very good name. And
I love that name.
It also, when we talk about what it's themed to, I don't know if you know the theme of the ride, but
I mean, there's a boat.
I mean, you can kind of tell from the logo here, but so I guess I can say it's the reason we're doing this episode today is because when I saw that this episode lined up like to come out on Thanksgiving, I was like, well, I have to do one of the Thanksgiving coasters at Holiday World, right?
Yeah.
So there's now 3 coasters in the Thanksgiving section over there, and so I just went with the Voyage because that's the big one. So the Voyage is themed to the Mayflower, literally the voyage across the Atlantic Ocean that the Mayflower took in 1620.
Sure.
I have it later in the episode. I think that date's right. So, but yeah, so that's what it's themed to. So this is a good logo. I like the inclusion of the sails in the logo, so that it very gets the point across that this is themed to like on a boat, right?
Right.
So I do think the logo's a little outdated. Like it could use a little refresh, like not a lot, just little bits here and there, like. It definitely looks like it was designed in 2006. Like, I don't think they need to completely change it, but maybe just update it a little bit.
Give it a little bit of paint job.
Just a little refresh. So, review the paint scheme in the trains. It's a wooden coaster, so not a paint scheme to talk about.
Trains are very
the trains are nice. I mean, it's depending on what type of trains your wooden coaster has. Some of them, there's not much you can do with the trains. Now, right. I will say that when we did the Raven episode last season, we praised the Raven for the new paint job that they gave it, which has the trains are red, but then they painted like black wings on the side. Mm-hmm. They really haven't done something like that for the Voyage trains. It's really just a blue train with the logo on the front. So kind of basic. I mean, they look nice.
Why do they not paint the wood?
Really, the answer is that it just isn't worth the extra time that it takes. Like, steel holds paint better than wood does. So, when you paint a steel coaster, that paint tends to stick around for, 5 years before it really starts to show its age. Right. And it depends where the coaster's located, too. But wood doesn't hold paint as well, so you rarely will see parks paint wooden coasters.
Isn't Jackrabbit painted?
Well, that's the thing. So there are some. So like Kennywood paints their wooden coasters. The Racer at Kings Island is painted. So there are exceptions to that. And they look really nice when they, actually paint their wooden coasters. But it is a lot of work. So
that's a bummer because I think it would look great.
Yep. So
I feel like it would just add to so much of their coaster, but
yeah, I agree. So
I get it.
Here's the park's description of the ride.
Here we go.
This relentless coaster is an airtime machine, with riders experiencing a feeling of weightlessness for a wooden coaster record total of 24.3 seconds. It takes the traditional out and back layout to the edge of insanity, with one of the steepest drops on any wooden roller coaster in the world. I'm not gonna do the whole. There's a really long description, so we'll just stick with that.
They did this too for the last Holiday World one that was so long.
Yeah, so I do like the catchphrase is a land, sea, and airtime. I get it.
Okay.
Customer reviews. Don't have a ton today. Like, again, with like we said this during our Raven episode, there's not like a lot of reviews for Holiday World, which is funny because I know it's a regional park, but they still have more than 1 million people going there every year. Like, it's, you would think they'd get more reviews, but I don't know, maybe people in Indiana don't use the internet, or I don't know what that is, but
Terrible.
Hey, people make jokes about Arkansas all the time. I think it's only fair that I can throw jokes at other states occasionally. So
my dad makes jokes about Arkansas all the time.
That is true.
Oh my god, my dad is the worst at it. So bad.
Here's a I should mention 4.7 out of 5 on Google reviews, so not too shabby.
Okay.
Here's a 5-star review. It's called the Voyage for a reason. I've ridden much longer coasters in terms of track length, but none have felt nearly as epic as the Voyage. This ride is like going on an exhausting journey and returning home with newfound revelations. Okay, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but this ride really is something special.
I love that review.
Here's another 5-star. This ride is insane, but in the best way possible. Absolutely stunning views on the ride as it goes out into the forest. The ride is long and intense. One of the best wooden roller coasters in the world. One more 5-star here. I love coasters, and Voyage has been my number 1 for years. Visited for the first time since 2016, and the Voyage is still amazing. So there you go. High praise. Here's for the not so good. Some of these are just ridiculous. 1 star. Not even that big. I've done much more. Drop is pretty small.
Wow.
What?
Are we sure we're talking about the same coaster?
I know. Like, I don't know if this is supposed to be for the kiddie coaster. Like, maybe this is for Good Gravy.
When was it written?
It was 5 months ago. Very well. Yeah, maybe they accidentally put it on Good Gravy. But yeah, not Drop is pretty small. Okay, sure.
The wrong coaster,
160 feet. Here's another 1 star. Okay, should I this I don't know if I should say it how they typed it out or say it how they meant to say it. So it says, went so fast I fell off and now I'm at the hospital. This ride is real bad. That's what they're trying to say. What it actually says is, went so fast I fell of and no I at hospital. This rid is real bod. First of all, this is absolute lie. No one has fallen off the ride. And second of all,
name. I have moved to a new channel, Kids TV. I'm so confused.
I am very confused.
Very confused.
This one's funny to me. 3 stars, not on your life. I still don't know why people feel inclined to leave a review for something they've never done before, but I did find that funny. It's like 3 stars, like, not on your life. Maybe it's not on your.
Recommendation is don't do it.
Maybe it's not on your life. Am I getting back on that again?
Yeah,
maybe that's what it is. So. 4 stars, best roller coaster in the park, maybe not for younger kids or people with motion sickness. Yeah, that's pretty much all roller coasters. Yeah. And then this is the weird one. There were multiple people leaving 1-star reviews and just saying Gary. I have no idea. Look at this. 1 star, Gary. 1 star, Gary. 1 star, Gary.
Me?
I know there's a town close by called Gary, Indiana, but I have no idea what this is supposed to be. I was looking all over the place, I was like, is like one of the coaster designers named Gary? Is like someone work at the park named Gary? Like, I
Who's Gary?
I never was able to figure out if there's an inside joke here.
Gary, come forward!
But 3 of the 1-star reviews are 1-star reviews for Gary, apparently. So,
What?
I don't know.
So confusing. What the heck?
Yeah. So,
that's
very strange.
All right,
so,
Gary.
So maybe those are just bad reviews for Gary, Indiana.
Gary, we want to meet you.
There are our customer reviews for the Voyage at Holiday World. Let's talk about the history. So let's hop into our time machine here.
Here we go.
We've got to make room for the turkey to sit next to us. So, well, it's Thanksgiving. We got to bring a turkey with us. So
you have a good turkey impersonation. Go for it.
I do not.
Yes, you do.
Man, that was pretty good. Pull on the lap bar, keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the time machine at all times. And let's go back to 2004. All right. So, to start off, I think just a quick little recap on the history of Holiday World. So obviously we did like 2 or 3, like a third of the episode during our Raven episode was about the history of Holiday World. I've condensed that quite a bit. So just brief recap for those of you that may have not been able to listen to our Raven episode. So prior to 2004, where our story starts, in 1946, the community of Santa Claus, Indiana was officially founded. The town,
such a cute little town.
The town initially applied to be named Santa Fe, but was asked to choose a different name because I think there was already a Santa Fe, Indiana at that point. I don't know. So they eventually chose Santa Claus instead of Santa Fe.
Why?
I don't know.
No one knows.
Now that I look at it, I think I have 1946 here. I think it was 1846. I think that's the correct date.
I was going to say 1946 seems.
Yeah, because the eventual acceptance of the Santa Claus name was 1856, so that seems to make more sense. So.
Typo.
So it remained largely undeveloped until 1935 when Santa's Candy Castle opened, which is still there to this day. And that kind of encouraged locals to turn it into a tourist destination with Christmas-themed shops and attractions. There was someone else there that built a large statue of Santa Claus, and then that led to a dispute between the owner of the Candy Castle and the owner of the statue on who owns more, like the land ownership in the town. So it's like all this drama about who owns more of Santa Claus, Indiana.
Weird.
I know, right? So. Meanwhile, a man by the name of Lewis Cook was inspired to create a theme park in the area after they visited the area in 1941. And basically they visited and they were like, you can't even meet Santa Claus here. Like, they have this candy castle, there's this statue, there's some shops, but you can't even meet Santa. So it was kind of later in his life too, and so he was kind of looking for like what he wanted retirement to be. So he and his family opened Santa Claus Land in 1946. So, and it had a toy shop, a restaurant, rides, and you could meet Santa Claus. What do you know?
Santa's coming to town. Sorry,
so here's some pictures. Here's some pictures from early Santa Claus Land. The park grew throughout the 40s and the 50s. They started introducing admission fees in 1955. Continued to grow throughout the 50s and the 60s. Finally, they started opening more attractions in 1976. So they opened their first roller coaster, Blitzen, in 1981. And then a few years later, in 1984, they decided to rebrand the park to Holiday World. Basically, the idea was that Christmas was kind of limiting them to just being like kids attractions. Like, it's hard to find something Christmas themed that's like scary or intimidating, so to speak. So they're like, if we
Frosty's pretty terrifying.
Frosty the Snowman themed roller coaster or something. So, but they so their idea was, what if we renamed Hollywood and we could open this to do other holidays on the park. So in 1984, they rebranded as Holiday World and include Halloween and the 4th of July as additional themed areas in the park. So, that's how that goes. And then eventually, Will Cook, who was the grandson of the original founder, took over the park in the early 90s. They would add Splash and Safari in 1993, which has been like the biggest investment they could have made. Like that's really has what helped the park grow and grow and grow. It's like it's one of the, I think it's, if it's not the largest, it's the second largest water park in the country. It's huge. Yeah. Like it takes up so much of the park, and it's really a big money maker.
Right.
I
know, like when my cousins go, like that's what they do.
Oh yeah. Like I listened to an interview with Will Cook from about 10-15 years ago. So someone asked Will Cook, if you had to keep your water park or your roller coasters, which one would you pick? And
roller coasters.
Well, he said the water park.
Rude.
You have to think of this from a business perspective, and
I don't.
I know you don't, but that's what I'm telling you.
GP says no.
That's what I'm telling you to do, though, is think of this from a business perspective.
Fine.
What brings in more money for Holiday World? It's absolutely the water park. So.
Okay.
That's why so many of these amusement parks have water parks in them.
No, I can't get behind it.
I don't know. It's not really our cup of tea, but it's a big deal for a lot of these parks, and it's why a lot of them have gotten to the point that they don't charge separate admission for their water parks.
Look
because
at Hershey.
Hershey does that. Holiday World does that, obviously. I'm trying to think. Carowinds doesn't do, or Carowinds, it's included in the ticket. Worlds of Fun, like a lot of these parks. I think Cedar Point's included. Maybe not Cedar Point. I can't remember now, but
I don't remember that being in the price of it.
I can't remember for Cedar Point, but it's a lot of these parks. It's completely included in admission because they realize how big that is for to get people through the gates.
That might be one of the reasons why people are asking like Silver Dollar City to move Whitewater Raft.
I did wonder if, like, when they were having their big announcement for their resort last, a few weeks ago, I did wonder if, like, they would move Whitewater. I think...
I don't know. Could they really do that?
It would be so much money to do that. I don't think they will, but there was a thought that crossed my mind of, like, would they? So, I personally don't think they will. I don't think the money is worth it. I think it would eventually pay off, but it would take for a long time for it to pay off. So that's the water park in 1993, and then in 1995 they add the Raven, which ended up being wildly successful. Was rated the best wooden coaster in the world back in the the late 90s. There helped boost park attendance along with the water park. Finally, in 2000, the park would add their second coaster, which was another wooden coaster by CCI called the Legend. So we haven't done an episode on the Legend. We will someday, but so here's a few pictures of the Legend here. Now,
it almost looks identical to the Voyage.
It's so
like the cars and stuff do.
Well, so all three, the Raven, the Legend, and the Voyage, all use PTC trains.
Okay.
So they all are very, like, the trains are all the same. Now the ride experiences are very different, just the way the track has been designed. The Legend focuses a lot on laterals, like turns that are really fast but aren't banked a lot, so you're getting flung from side to side, where the Raven focuses more on airtime. So those two are kind of differentiated in that way. The Voyage is very different from both of them, as we'll get to in a minute, but yes, they do all have the same trains, so those will look very similar.
Okay.
So with two very successful wooden coasters, the park turns its focus back to the water park for the next few editions. They actually won the Applause Award at the 2004 IAPA Expo for originality and creativity plus sound business development and profitability.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, Holiday World's like at the top of their game in 2004. But there were few people that knew that their biggest investment was just around the corner. So, that takes us to where our story begins today in 2004. So, just a brief little recap of the history of the park to get us to where we're at today. So 2006, a couple years from where we're starting, was going to be the 60th anniversary of Holiday World. So park officials were kind of already in the planning process of what they wanted to do for the big anniversary. Yep. So in late 2004, the park began working on a new wooden roller coaster that they wanted to open in 2006. So,
why they kept adding wooden.
Well, I've got the answer for you right here. How about that?
That's the right question.
At the right time, too. So the park had found a lot of success in wooden coasters, obviously, and they believed that wooden coasters had a larger family appeal, and so they just wanted to continue building. You know, the first two had worked out that way, and so they just decided to build a third one. That's kind of how they had felt, is that it just had a larger appeal to families to build a wooden coaster instead of a steel one. So.
Yeah, but you've told me that this coaster we're talking about is not
it's insane. So I don't know if it started out that way, and then when they made it bigger and bigger, maybe they're like, okay, well, this isn't really a family coaster, but still. it's still... So they've obviously kind of shifted directions a little bit since the Voyage. You know, with their last two coasters they've constructed have both been steel. So
right.
Who knows what the future will hold? But I mean, 3 wooden coasters in the same park is pretty much unheard of nowadays. Right. I mean, you have Kennywood has 3. I think Kings Island has 4. King's Dominion has 3.
It's just funny that we've been all
I know, we've been at a lot of these parks with a lot of wooden coasters. So, Knoebels has 3. Knott's only has 1. Cedar Point only has 1. So, yeah, there's a few that, have 3. And I think the most is Kings Island with 4. I don't think there's any parks that have more than 4. But yeah, 3 is pretty uncommon. I think there's only 3 or 4 parks in the country that have that many wooden coasters. And then there's some that have none, which is just really fun, crazy to me. But there are some parks out there that just straight up don't have a wooden coaster.
We're
but
nah, we're good.
So, yeah. So
we're too good for
just funny because wooden coasters are cheaper to build than steel coasters,
which blows my mind because
they do require more maintenance is the back side of that.
There's so many little posts that you have to add, and I don't know. Every time I see a wooden coaster, I'm like, that's a freaking ton of wood. That is so much wood.
What it comes down to is
a massive spider web or something.
Really what it comes down to is just the cost of materials, I think. Wood is just a lot cheaper than steel is.
I guess so.
So I think that's really what the cost comes down to. Because from a maintenance and construction standpoint, absolutely wood is more complicated. So, yeah, but they have their place, but definitely not as many being built nowadays as there used to be. So that's why they went with wood, I guess. Is, what I've heard is that they found them to be more family friendly for their park. Now, in the years since the Legend had opened, CCI actually went bankrupt. And so that was the company they had worked with for the first 2 wooden coasters.
Right.
So Holiday World would turn to the Gravity Group to build this coaster, which makes sense because Gravity Group was founded by the remnants of the engineering team that worked at CCI. So it was basically CCI went under and all the engineers there were like, why don't we start our own company? And that was the Gravity Group. And so these are people that they had already worked with on the first two coasters. It's just at a different company now.
Right.
So Gravity Group had actually...
talked about this before.
Yeah, Gravity Group actually helped with some of the modifications to the Raven in that time frame between the Legend and the Voyage. So,
right.
So there was already a working relationship there. So the park and the Gravity Group decided on a site for the new coaster. The park president, Will Cook, made one thing clear. He did not care about the money. He basically gave the Gravity Group a blank check and said he wanted this ride to be the best wooden coaster in the world, whatever it took.
Whoa.
Which is just crazy to me. I've never heard of a park just saying, I don't care what it costs, just make it happen. Now it
That's
only
cool.
Now it only
I
costs
love that.
$6.5 million, where we've talked about coasters that are like $30 million. But still, for a regional park, like that's impressive to just say, I don't care what it costs, just make it happen. So that's pretty cool. So, and Cook actually worked pretty closely with the Gravity Group to help them develop the layout, and his name is actually listed as one of the designers for the coaster.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Okay.
he talked to a lot of coaster enthusiasts as they visited the park and as they visited other parks to learn from them what kind of things they would want to see in a coaster layout. So really just getting input from a lot of different sources.
I love that he went to the people that are going
Right?
to ride it.
Like this
that's
wasn't
cool.
just about business. This was about
It was a love.
appealing to the people.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
like a passion project.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely a passion project. So as development continued, it was decided that the park would utilize an out and back layout rather than the kind of the twister style layouts. I don't know if you know the difference of what that means. So basically, like if you think about, I'm trying to think of a good example. Twister layout is basically just a coaster that kind of weaves in and out of itself, and it's kind of in a big...
Like
It's
Steel
like-
Vengeance,
Kind of. The only thing is Steel Vengeance kind of makes multiple laps around itself, just getting lower and lower to the ground as it goes around.
What about
So,
like Twisted Timbers?
so the Twisted Timbers is probably a good example of a coaster that's kind of a twister layout. There was another one that came to mind. Like the original Wildcat at Hershey Park is a good example. Or like Lightning Racer at Hershey Park 2 is a coaster that kind of weaves... It kind of ties itself in like a big knot, almost.
Okay.
And then an out and back layout is kind of like the Racer at Kings Island, where the coaster goes out one direction and then turns around and comes all the way back. It doesn't like cross over itself a whole lot. But you can almost build the coaster in like a straight line instead of kind of a big, I don't know, circle or square of track, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So the Raven and the Legend are kind of twister layouts where they kind of just are all in one spot and it kind of twists around itself. For the Voyage, they decided it was going to like go out into the woods and then come back type of thing. So Gravity Group would turn to two of CCI's most iconic attractions to kind of help inspire the new coaster's layout. So they turned to Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure, which is this one right here, which I gotta say, this thing, I haven't been on this one, but this is just an insane looking coaster. Like just the, like it's just so much going on. And there's so much wood. Like it's just this is a massive, massive wooden coaster. So currently ranked at number 52 in the country and number 11 in the wooden category. So a very highly rated coaster. This is at like, if I remember correctly too, this is at like the front of the park. So you like,
you walk in,
it's just like, whoa.
Wow.
So, and then very different from Shivering Timbers is Boulder Dash at Lake Compounds, which it's a terrain coaster that basically goes out into the woods and is just like diving in and out of the trees, very close to the ground. So very, very, two extremes in as far as wooden coasters are concerned. Boulder Dash is currently ranked at number 35 in the country and number 9 in the wooden category. So two very highly rated coasters even to this day. And so Gravity Group is aware of how well received these two coasters are, and so they're kind of using these as inspiration. for this new coaster they're doing for Holiday World.
Yeah, because they've got a blank check. They can do it.
Oh yeah, right. This is, let's make this the best coaster we can. So let's look at what other coasters that we probably designed, because it's at this company we used to work for. What did we do for these coasters that made it work? How can we apply that to this new coaster, right? So July 13th, 2005, Holiday World announced the addition of their 4th themed area for the 60th anniversary. And that would be the new Thanksgiving section of the park. So the new themed area, the new themed area would include a few flat rides, a restaurant, and then 2 major attractions. One would be a Gobbler Getaway, which is an it's an interactive dark ride built by the.
I love shooting rides.
It's built by the Sally Corporation, which is probably the number 1 dark ride manufacturer in the country. Guests are equipped with turkey collars, and they use that to tag birds as they pass through the town.
What? That's.
Yep, here it says right on the front of the building, "Find the turkeys and safe Thanksgiving."
What the heck?
And it's like in this big building that's designed to look like a barn. So it's actually pretty fun. I rode, I don't typically do all the non-coaster rides at a park, but I had heard good things about Gobbler Getaway, and the park was dead when I was there. So I had time to ride Gobbler Getaway. It was actually pretty fun. So. But then the main attraction for this new area is obviously the topic for our show today. That is the Voyage, a multi-record breaking wooden coaster themed to the voyage of the Mayflower across the Atlantic Ocean in 1620. I did get that date right. So
there you go.
The Voyage's stats were just absolutely crazy. 163 feet tall, which would be the tallest wooden coaster in the world. 6,442 feet long, the second longest wooden coaster in the world, and 67 miles per hour, the fastest wooden coaster in the world.
That's wild.
Crazy.
Let me just peel your skin off.
I mean, it's just like, again, with that blank...
Put your eyeballs in your sockets.
Like, with that blank check, Gravity Group was just like, go big or go home, right? So... Now, they had designed the layout to start like Shivering Timbers. As you'll see, it's got the big sweeping airtime hills, kind of like a hyper coaster, right?
Right.
Like an Apollo's Chariot or a Candemonium, right? And then the end of the ride finishes like Boulder Dash, where it's kind of low to the ground and fast paced, and so it's definitely. I've heard a lot of people describe it as kind of a 3-in-1 coaster, where it's got the big airtime hills, the turnaround section, which kind of weaves it in and out of itself. They call it the spaghetti bowl, which we've talked about that term before with other coasters. Mm-hmm. And then the kind of the return trip as it's staying close to the ground, and so it's kind of a 3-in-1 coaster. I've heard a lot of enthusiasts refer to it in that way. So. With over a mile of track, Gravity Group had to get really creative with how they maintained the coaster's speed. Because when the coaster's that long, you have to keep the speed up for a long time. Otherwise, by the end of the ride, you're just like,
so did they do multiple launches?
No launches. No, there's only been one wooden launch coaster. That was Lightning Rod at Dollywood. So all the speed from this coaster comes from the first drop and takes it through the whole ride.
That's wild.
We'll talk about how they did it in a minute. It's kind of interesting. So the coaster, you don't really realize it when you're on the ride. You kind of have to look at the terrain of the park to kind of understand how it works. But when you're going over these large airtime hills, you're actually working your way uphill. So you don't really realize that because you're so far off the ground going over these big camelback hills.
Yeah.
But you kind of work your way uphill, and then you stay close to the ground and maintain speed as you work back down the hill toward the station. The Voyage would also feature 7 tunnels, some of which are completely underground. The Gravity Group found it easier in some spots to maintain speed by going through the terrain rather than trying to go over it if that makes sense. So basically you'd have like this big airtime hill, and like rather than, you know, kind of slowing down and going over the ground, it's just like, why don't we just keep that speed going and just go straight underground. So lots of tunnels on the ride for that reason, to kind of help the coaster maintain its speed. But also tunnels are just, you know,
tunnels are cool.
Yeah, tunnels just make for a more interesting layout, definitely. So the Voyage also has, well, it was set to feature two 90-degree bank turns, just like this one right here in this photo. Only the second ever wooden coaster to feature a 90-degree bank turn. The first was Hades, which was built by Gravity Group the year before the Voyage opened. So it's kind of something Gravity Group started. At one point, a corkscrew was considered for the layout, which would have been the second ever inversion on a wooden coaster, the first being Son of Beast in 2000. So at some point that was abandoned. I don't know why. The thought process would be it's to make it more family friendly, but this coaster is not family friendly. So I don't know. I don't know why they abandoned the corkscrew. I did not get information on why that was abandoned at some point. I just know it was considered. So the layout was announced along with the announcement of the ride in July of 2005, but they continued to make tweaks to it throughout the design process. There was actually a third 90-degree bank turn that was added after the announcement. They also added a mid-course brake run to help improve capacity. So basically, with that mid-course brake run, they could run 3 trains instead of 2. So it makes sense. Construction would take a lot of time, obviously, for something this big. And so that's why they announced it in the summer instead of the fall, where other coaster announcements typically happen. So I do have some construction stats for you. So
I like the construction.
They're not as good as some of the past couple weeks,
but it's still kind of cool.
So 320,000 feet of southern yellow pine for the construction of the ride.
What is yellow pine?
Some type of pine in the south.
Okay, so do they plant more trees though after they cut all of these trees down?
I'm sure wooden coaster manufacturers definitely are involved in...
A lot of wood.
There's a lot of wood, so I'm sure they're involved in...
That's like the whole rainforest.
Not really.
You know, Egypt used to be a forest. Not anymore, because they used it for roller coaster wood.
I don't think that's true. I think that is false information you're spreading on the internet, so...
That's actually really funny. It became a rumor now.
Oh dear. I don't think it's that believable. I'm sorry. So
come on.
750 tons of galvanized steel, and then 2,200 concrete footers for the entire layout. So I also found myself reading an article from the Construction Digest magazine because there was an article about the Voyage.
Funny.
I'm like,
there's articles on so much.
I know.
About
Well,
this.
and I'm like, Construction Digest. I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, I mean,
Colin reads it. Colin,
your brother reads it. So.
Colin subscribes.
I mean, it makes sense. There's magazines for everything,
That's
but
true. It's
I was
just
like,
funny.
wow. So now,
Colin, if you're listening, we love you.
So the Voyage is by definition a wooden coaster due to the track being wood. That's the most important thing. Now, but the majority of the support structure is actually steel. And so,
how did they do that?
So I have a picture here, some construction photos here. So basically what they did is they wanted the coaster to look like a traditional wood coaster. So they didn't want to have like these big steel beams underneath the wooden track, which they probably could have done. But they purposely designed this lattice work of steel structure so that it still looked like a traditional wooden coaster. But the steel is, it actually decreases the maintenance costs for such a massive attraction.
I was going to say, I mean, wonder what the difference would be.
Yeah, that's really what it is, you know, the maintenance for steel is a lot less than wood. So by making a majority of the structure steel, it actually decreased how much it costs to maintain. But
it's still considered?
It's still considered a wooden coaster because the track is wood, and that's the defining feature. The same way that an RMC coaster has a wooden structure.
My chair is squeaky tonight.
The same way an RMC coaster is a wooden structure with steel track is considered a steel coaster. This is basically the opposite, a steel structure but with wooden track.
Got it.
Now you could classify it as a hybrid coaster, is kind of how you could classify it, as, you know, having steel and wood. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, when you're ranking wooden coasters versus steel coasters, this falls into the wooden category because of the track. That's the defining feature, and how the actual ride experience is affected is by the track itself. So just one more picture I wanted to show here. This is after construction was completed, but before it opened.
I like the fog.
So
they brought in fog machines just for this picture.
Doubt it. This is just winter in Indiana, so.
Is it winter?
I mean, this opened in May. This is prior to opening, but after construction. So you're looking.
I was gonna say that's
January,
spring.
January to April,
there's
probably.
There's no snow on the ground in Indiana.
That is true.
Indiana gets snow.
There is no snow on the ground in this picture, so it could have been like early March where it was cold, but not cold enough for snow. Maybe. Anyway, I don't know exactly when the picture was taken. Just says 2006, so I know it was post January, but pre-May because this was before the coaster opened. So. On May 6th, 2006, the brand new Thanksgiving section of the park would open with the Voyage as the main attraction, and it continues to operate to this day. Okay, you're ready for the ride experience? This is a 6,200 feet of track. Right. So don't
fall asleep.
Yeah, don't fall asleep here.
Read fast.
So if you don't like
I'm gonna read it.
No,
I'm gonna read it.
I got this.
Come on. Okay,
I'm the one that typed it all up. So
do popcorn. Popcorn.
It's gonna take way too long to do popcorn. So if you don't like the ride experience part of the episode, you can fast forward a minute or two. So the ride experience is as follows. The train dispatches the station and dips to the left underneath some of the return track before engaging the 163-foot tall lift hill. Cresting the hill, the train drops down 154 feet, reaching the top speed of 67 miles per hour. The train immediately ascends the second airtime hill of 107 feet, drops down to ground level, and then ascends another 100-foot tall airtime hill. At the bottom of the third drop, the train enters the first tunnel before going over a small airtime hill to the right and entering the second tunnel. Riders ascend another airtime hill before diving back down into a third tunnel. After exiting the tunnel, the train twists through 3 alternating bank turns and makes a sweeping turn to the left as it begins the journey back to the station. After a few small airtime moments, the train makes the first 90-degree bank turn to the left, followed by the second to the right. After a few small airtime moments, the train flies upward through the fourth tunnel and slows momentarily as it hits the mid-course brakes. Riders crest the brakes and dive into the fifth tunnel, during which the train sails over the triple down, 3 consecutive drops all in the dark. Riders speed out of the tunnel and over 2 more airtime hills before traversing an S-curve that takes you under the first set of airtime hills. After a few small airtime moments, the train darts to the left under the first drop and into the final 90-degree bank turn to the right as it crosses back under the lift hill. After a small turn to the left, the train ascends over an airtime hill over the start of the lift hill and dives back down to the right into a tunnel under the station. After exiting the tunnel, the ride finishes by weaving through a left turn through the 7th and final tunnel, a small airtime hill, and then a sweeping right turn up into the final brakes. All right.
Did you get your breath back?
Yeah. Did you get all that? Can you recite that from memory now?
Up, down, up, down.
A lot of up and down, yeah.
Left, right, left, right.
A lot of up and down and left
Through
and
tunnel,
right. There you go.
Over and under.
Lot of tunnels.
Tunnel, tunnel, tunnel.
So.
90-degree turn.
Yeah, a few 90-degree bank turns. There you go.
Airtime. There you go.
From the beginning, enthusiasts have always felt that the Voyage is one of the most legendary and iconic roller coasters ever constructed. Just the mixture of large airtime hills, low to the ground moments, tunnels, and it's a really long ride. It just creates, like one person said in the customer reviews, it was like a journey, like it's an adventure, like it's just a whole experience, right? Mm-hmm. The layout is deceptively long, and it just seems to go on forever. I guess I can talk a little bit about my experience riding the Voyage. Haley, unfortunately, has not been able to ride it because she was pregnant during this time. So
such a bummer. We're going back though,
we will.
Because my cousin.
Yeah, she has family in that area.
So close. They go all the time.
Yeah, so we will absolutely be back to Holiday World. So I don't know if it'll be this year, next year, whatever. Or not. I guess not this year. I don't know if it's next year or the year after that, but we'll definitely be back. Especially because I got to get my good gravy credit. So
Heck yeah. I mean, honestly, we probably could go this year. It would give us a chance to visit my cousin.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. So it's definitely possible. So, but my experience, the thing I struggle with the Voyage, I don't like it as much as most enthusiasts, but I think the problem is that I'm a little bit on the bigger side, and the PTC trains are not exactly built for people that are on the bigger side. So the trains, PTC trains were designed long time ago. I mean, they've been running PTC trains on roller coasters for, gosh, I don't know when the first one was. Probably in the 40s or 50s, maybe even earlier. I might be, maybe too early. But, I mean, you get the idea. It's been for decades that they've been running these trains.
Right.
They have made small improvements. Like, the Voyage trains are better than the trains on the Legend because... So there's like a partition in between the two seats. And on the Legend, it's a solid piece. I don't know if it's plastic or foam or whatever they use. But on the Voyage, it's actually, there's an opening in the middle. So it actually gives you a little bit of room for your hips. So some of the PTC trains are better than others. But generally speaking, they're just not as comfortable for larger people as some other wooden coaster trains. So I think that's part of why I didn't enjoy the Voyage as much as some people. I think I just wasn't as comfortable.
Yeah. My
preference, actually we'll get to my preference on which train I would want later because it becomes applicable in our story. But so I would love to get back to Holiday World, preferably after I lose some weight, because I think that could positively impact my experience with the Voyage. But I will say the layout is really impressive, and when you hit the mid-course brakes, it feels like the ride should be done. Like you slow down, you're only like 6 feet off the ground at that point.
That would be very deceiving.
But what you don't realize when you hit those mid-course brakes is you're still 98 feet higher than the station.
Whoa.
So like you're only 6 feet off the ground, but what you don't realize is it's still 98 feet downhill to get back to the station. So like you still have tons of speed as you race down the hillside back to the station. So it feels impossible that a ride only 163 feet tall could carry that much speed for that long. Where like the Beast is longer, but the Beast has 2 lift hills, where this only has the one. So it's crazy how it carries that speed for so long. Right. So the average speed throughout the whole ride is 42 miles per hour. So it's impressive that it's able to carry that much speed for 6,200 feet of track.
Yeah, that's true.
When it opened, the Voyage would also break the record for the most airtime on any roller coaster in the world at 24.2 seconds.
Whoa.
So tons of I said airtime probably like 20 times in that description. So it was airtime. So. Now, some of the Voyage's records would be short-lived, because a month later, on June 12th, 2006, Six Flags Great Adventure would open El Toro, another record-breaking wooden coaster, which is currently ranked at number 7 in the country, and the number 2 wooden coaster in the world. So these 2 coasters that are considered the 2 best wooden coasters ever constructed opened a month apart from each other.
That's crazy.
In 2006.
Do you think that's a coincidence, or do you think not?
I think it is a coincidence, because they were developed by, this is Intamin, this is Gravity Group, this is Holiday World, this is Six Flags. So they're not even really competitors, because one's a regional park and one's a national chain. So I do think it's just complete coincidence that these massive wooden coasters opened the same summer. So El Toro would be 3 miles per hour faster, 22 feet taller, and 10 degrees steeper. However, the Voyage would retain its airtime record and was still the second longest wooden coaster in the world, only behind the Beast at Kings Island. So, El Toro took most of the records away a month later, but the Voyage did still have the airtime record at least.
It got a consolation prize.
And it did open first, so it got to say it was, when it opened, it was the tallest and fastest wooden coaster in the world. So,
True.
At least that much. Now, as the Golden Ticket Awards got closer, enthusiasts were curious to see which of these two coasters would take home the award for Best Coaster of the Year. Now, granted, this is also the same year that Expedition Everest opens at Animal Kingdom.
What a competitor.
Talk about a year for roller coasters. I posted this on social media, but because as I was doing the research for this episode, I just thought this is crazy. Like 2006 for roller coasters was Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia, Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Expedition Everest, and then some other foreign coasters like Stealth and Ejanica, as well as El Toro and the Voyage. Like, it's just 2006 was quite the year for roller coasters. So
it's weird to think that was like almost 20 years ago.
It's pretty wild.
That's weird. It's weird to think about.
So the Golden Ticket Awards come around, and in a landslide victory, the Voyage would win the award for Best New Coaster of 2006 with 50% of the vote. So not even really that close. Expedition Everest would finish second, and El Toro would finish third. So Voyage would actually finish as the second best wooden coaster in the world in the overall rankings, losing out to Thunderhead at Dollywood, which is crazy because Thunderhead is great. I love Thunderhead. Thunderhead's my favorite wooden coaster I've ever been on, but it's not the Voyage. Like, this is a record-smashing roller coaster, and Thunderhead's kind of just a typical GCI coaster. So, anyway. The Voyage would continue to operate as the crown jewel of the park for the next several years. Eventually, it would overtake Thunderhead as the number one coaster in the world in the Golden Ticket Awards, and would remain that way for the next 4 years. So you can see now on the station they have this Golden Ticket Award sign, voted number one coaster on the planet. So in 2009, Holiday World began working with Gravity Group on a new train the company was developing. So, like we talked about earlier, the Voyage and all the other wooden coasters in the park all had the same PTC trains, which is, like I said, there's so many wooden coasters with the PTC trains. The Racer at Kings Island. I'm trying to think of others. Can't remember if I know Jackrabbit doesn't, but I think the Racer and Thunderbolt might have PTC trains. I can't remember for certain.
I would not know.
Comet at Hershey Park has PTC trains, so they're all over the place. Now, Gravity Group wanted Holiday World to use a new train that they had developed. These trains were also known as Timberliners. That's what they were naming them. So the project was announced in November of 2009, and from the start, there were just so many issues. So I'm gonna go through this fairly quickly because there's, like I said, I said we could do 2 episodes about the Voyage. One of these episodes could just be about all the debacles that happened with these stupid trains. So
Whoa.
At the end of 2009, Holiday World sold 2 of the Voyage's trains to Six Flags Darien Lake because they were like, okay, Gravity Group's going to give us these new trains so we can sell off these old ones, right? So they sold 2 of their PTC trains over to Six Flags. However, the Timberliner trains were running behind schedule for the 2010 season. So Holiday World wanted to make sure they tested these trains extensively before they opened, so they decided to push the project back to 2011 so that they could test it properly.
Right.
But now they only have 1 train for the Voyage because they thought this was going to be done in time, and it's not. So they had took one of the trains from the Raven and made some adjustments so that it worked with the Voyage. And so now the Voyage is only running with 2 trains and the Raven's only running with 1 train. So during this time, the Timberliner would debut on other coasters such as Wooden Warrior at Quasi Amusement Park and Twister at Gröna Lund in Sweden. And the trains were met with mixed reviews.
Yeah.
So that's not good. I've personally only been on one coaster that has these Timberliner trains, and I did not like it. So I can't. So so here you can see here. So here's the PTC train that they have currently. This one right here is the Timberliner train. So the restraints like are on the side of the train, and then you like pull it down sideways. Where like a lot of lap bars you pull down in front of you, this you pull over from the side.
Kind of like a seatbelt.
Yeah, kind of. Except it's still a lap bar. So it's kind of strange. And again, this is a problem with me being a little bit larger. So I don't know, maybe it's more comfortable for other people. But the way for me as a bigger person, the restraint didn't even come all the way across. Like I was still safe, but there's like this gap right here where it didn't come across my body.
Yeah, that would make me
It didn't make me nervous, but like when we would go around turns, like the end of the lap bar was like digging into my stomach here, and like it just was not comfortable. So again, no. So again, maybe for smaller people it's fine, but and that's on me. But it just I didn't find it very comfortable. Now, as the 2011 season neared, Gravity Group offered to completely redesign a newer model of the Timberliner for the Voyage in 2012. So Holiday World was like, okay, we can do that. But they needed the Raven to get back to full capacity. So in the meantime, they purchased 5 PTC cars. And then I guess they had 2 spares left over. So they constructed a brand new train for the Voyage and returned one of those trains back over to the Raven. Okay. So now there's 2 trains on the Raven, 2 trains on the Voyage, still all PTC trains. 2012 season nears and the Timberliners were delayed again. So Holiday World was like, okay, let's push it to the 2013 season. And you can see they had trains like built and they were testing. Like, I mean, it's even got the logo on it and everything. And you can, if you go to Holiday World's YouTube channel, you can actually find videos of them testing the Timberliner trains on the Voyage. And there's some people that got to ride it, like some of the Cook family that owns the park got to ride it with the Timberliner trains. So some people have a very rare credit of getting to ride the Voyage with these Timberliner trains. But
darn rare credit, people.
Yeah. Finally, in August of 2013, Holiday World announced that they were stepping away from the Timberliner project. So it was just like, we've tried this for 5 years now and have not been able to get this to work properly. We're just going to stick with the PTC trains and be done with it.
That would have been done after a year.
It's just a mess. So for the 2014 season, they shortened the PTC trains from 7 cars to 6 cars, likely so that they had a couple of spares to work with again. And that is how it continues to operate to this day. So all of that to try to get new trains on this coaster, and 18 years later, we're still running PTC trains on it. But capacity was hurt by this whole debacle because it went from 3 trains down to 2. So anyway, fortunately, in 2015, the park opened to their first new coaster since the Voyage, and that's their B&M wing coaster, Thunderbird. So that kind of helps with the capacity issue when you open a new coaster.
Yep.
So also in the Thanksgiving section, Thunderbird and the Voyage do have a couple interactions. At the bottom of the second hill, the Voyage crosses under the exit to Thunderbird's vertical loop. And also crosses under the same section on the return trip. So they had to install netting over the top of the Voyage in that section just in case somebody on Thunderbird dropped their phone. Heaven forbid it hits somebody flying by at 60 miles per hour on the Voyage.
Don't have your phone on the coaster.
Well, yes, but that's the solution. That is correct. But as you and I both know, people don't listen to the rules like they're supposed to.
I swear, whenever we rode that one coaster on the Fun Spot.
Yeah, Air Force One at Fun Spot. That's still the most egregious.
That was the closest I've gotten to something hitting me.
That's still the most egregious, like, people not following that rule that I've ever experienced.
Oh my word.
2 people on the same train losing their phone.
Yes.
It's just like, that's insane.
And the one lady was in front of me, and like the phone almost hit me in the face.
Ridiculous.
Sorry, I would have pressed charges. So don't have your phone.
No. So, and then the other time it kind of interacts with Thunderbird is the first tunnel dives underground directly below Thunderbird's Heartline roll. So on the return trip, it does as well, but that's the triple down, and you can see that tunnel actually goes from like all the way up the hill, all the way. So you don't really even see what's happening. So after 12 years, Steel Vengeance finally breaks the Voyage's airtime record when it opens at Cedar Point, beating the Voyage with an additional 3 seconds of airtime when it opens in 2018. So now Steel Vengeance now holds the record for the most airtime on any roller coaster in the world.
3 seconds. 3-second difference of airtime, and they're like, it's our title. You have to give it to us.
3 seconds is quite a lot when you're talking about.
Still, it was just funny that it's like 3 seconds.
Yeah, so it's held that record ever since. 6 years counting that Steel Vengeance has that record. I feel like it's going to be a long time before that record gets broken. So
we shall see.
Yeah. One of the most popular times of the year for the Voyage is during Holiday World's annual coaster enthusiast event, which is Hollywood Nights. Now, this event is probably the most popular coaster enthusiast event in the country.
Yeah, we talked about it.
So much so that you can't even buy the tickets. Like, you still have to pay for them, but you have to the tickets are on a lottery system. Like, you put your name in if you want to go, and then the names are randomly selected, and if you're lucky, your name gets selected and you get the opportunity to buy tickets. And if your name's not picked, then better luck next time. Like, that's how high the demand is for this event, and they don't want to expand it to multiple days or multiple nights. So they just say, okay, if you're lucky, you can come, and maybe next year, if not. So
it's wild.
So one of the things they do during this event that has made the Voyage one of the most popular, like, it makes this event super popular, also makes the Voyage really popular. They turn off the mid-course brakes during this event. So usually you slow down during that section and then kind of work through the rest.
Nope.
During this event, they turn it off and just let it go full speed.
Oh my gosh! I couldn't even imagine that.
Trimless Voyage is considered one of the best roller coaster rides in the world. So, yeah, and it's obviously it's at night, so you're getting a night ride along with no trims. Like,
do love me a good night ride.
So it's from what I've not been able to experience that, but from what I hear, it's just insane. Insane.
We need to do that next year.
That would be a lot of fun to go to Hollywood Nights. So
when is it?
They do it in June or July, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. So, you ready for a fun fact to finish this off?
Yeah.
In 2021, heavy metal band Fozzy filmed the entire music video for their song Sane while riding the Voyage. Like, literally, you watch the music video, and it's just them riding the coaster.
That's crazy.
And the lead singer sits in the front car and is singing along with the song while they're riding the most insane wooden coaster in the country. Like, it's pretty wild. Also, the lead guitarist has a guitar on the lift hill.
How did he hold that?
He throws it off the lift hill at the top.
Throws it? No way.
Yeah. I'm not gonna.
Could you imagine? What? Please tell me that no one was in the park.
Oh, absolutely. This was filmed.
I was gonna say, this had to have been like.
Oh yeah, you can look at the paths.
Event.
There's nobody here. So, yeah, this was.
Could you imagine getting hit in the head with a guitar? Like.
Well, I imagine there was probably a net at the bottom to catch it or something like that. Because there's like.
It's still broke.
Well.
It's still broke.
Oh, well, I'm not saying to save the guitar. I'm saying to save whatever is at the bottom of the lift hill, because there's like water slides and stuff on the side that he tossed it from. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. I'm not gonna play it for on the podcast here, but you absolutely need to go watch this music video if you're listening, because. And yeah, if you don't like heavy metal, you're not gonna love it, but it's still hilarious just to watch this. You're like, this is insanity. Like, the whole band is it 3 members? I think 4. Yeah, I think there's 4 people riding. I guess he's not in the lead car. He's actually in the second car here, and I guess they set up the camera on the back of the first car here. So, from what I hear, the lead singer is deathly afraid of heights, and so that was part of his idea, was like this could like be something for him to like conquer a fear while filming a music video, which I'm like, that's kind of...
Kudos to you. Could you imagine Ben? So Colin's my construction brother. And then Ben, we've taken him to Hershey before, and he had a conniption. Like, he would not even go on the family coasters, like, without freaking out.
he just hates roller coasters. So, which, to each their own. So.
Yeah, it's just funny.
So I think... If I remember correctly, they wrote it like 5 or 6 times to get all the footage that they wanted. So yeah.
Oh man, I would throw up.
So that's pretty crazy. That's a fun little detail there. So that takes us to the end of our story today. The Voyage is still, as of right now, the #1 wooden coaster in the world according to the CoasterBot rankings. Now, new CoasterBot rankings are coming out in like a month, so you never know when that can change. But the only way I see it getting overtaken is if El Toro jumps back ahead of it, which El Toro has been ranked higher than it in the past. But El Toro's been having some maintenance issues lately, and it's been having, like, it derailed a couple years ago. So yeah, El Toro's been on a struggle bus the past couple years, which has kind of helped the Voyage take over that top spot. So I think the Voyage will continue to hold that #1 wooden coaster spot, because nothing has opened that would warrant it losing that spot. So
wooden coasters just aren't popular anymore.
Not like they used to be, especially, like in the early 2000s, GCI was really taking off, and GCI still opens a coaster or two every year, but yeah, we haven't really seen anything wooden of this scale be constructed ever since El Toro and the Voyage opened in 2006. So, and that is the history of the Voyage at Holiday World. So
that was a beautiful story.
Yeah, quite the story. There's your Thanksgiving edition of Airtime Traveler, talking about the Thanksgiving coaster.
Maybe that's what they need
Voyage,
to do. Is they need to put a turkey.
A turkey on the coaster or something?
Yeah, just like the duck rode the...
like the duck that rode Millennium Force. Yeah. put a turkey on the Voyage. So I do think, if I remember correctly, am I remembering this correctly? I think they put stuffed turkeys on Good Gravy earlier this year and filmed a bunch of stuffed turkeys riding Good Gravy. I think I remember that.
What would be even funnier is if they had like stuffed turkeys that like sound like the chickens, like the rubber chickens.
Oh,
so when you squeeze them, they go.
I don't know if they have rubber turkeys like those rubber chickens. So.
Guarantee you they
do. I think those would be too small to fit on a coaster, though. They'd probably just fly out all over the place.
I could just hear
the
them.
big stuffed animals that can actually pull the lap bar down on them.
Go,
so.
Wah! I think it'd be hilarious.
Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of Airtime Traveler. We've only got 2 more episodes left this season, so yeah, we got, this is our last November episode. We got 2 more in December, and then...
Honestly, that kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So we will have a couple bonus episodes coming for you. We'll do our annual CoasterBot review when the CoasterBot rankings get released. And then prior to starting Season 4, we will do a review, more like a preview of the new for 2025 coasters that are opening. So you'll have a little bit of bonus content, and then Season 4 will start in early April, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. And yeah, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do that on Twitter/X or on Instagram. Like I said earlier, our handle is just @AirtimeTraveler for both of those. If you liked this episode, you can give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you might be listening to. It's not for our egos, it's just to help people find the podcast in the future. So, and we appreciate those of you that have done that for us. So
we do.
Yeah.
We love our listeners.
So, anything else from the GP?
Nope. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you here in the States that are celebrating.
I'm so excited. It's not actually Turkey Day yet for us.
No, not for us as we're recording this. So.
But I'm so excited for a good old pumpkin pie. Yum, yum, yum.
Well, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.